Hey everyone, welcome to Our Small Footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. It is the middle of summer for us. Well, it's not really end of January, I suppose it kind of is the middle of summer. So it's really, really hot. We're getting temperatures from 35 to 42 degrees Celsius. And the humidity today is 50%. So on the heat index scale, we're at the point where you're not supposed to do too much because you risk issues. So one of the things that I really struggle with in summer is breakfasts. We order, when I do my 2 monthly grocery hauls, I get rice bubbles, wheat bix, and the kids drink rice milk. Now, I buy enough of that it generally lasts them about half of that time. After that, we generally do things like I make yogurt, and we have granola, and we eat a lot of leftovers and a lot of eggs because summer's peak egg season. But sometimes it's hard, especially with the smaller boys, because they get up nice and early and they want to eat something straight away. The yogurt and the granola works really well. I've been making yogurt every couple of days, but we're out of granola at the moment, and I've been meaning to make it, but it's really hot, and granola's kind of a 4 or 5 hour task, most of it with the oven running, and to make the quantity that we go through, and I just haven't felt up to it. So I'm going to try something new. In summer, I make instant oatmeal, and I make it, I've got a video of it, I'll try and remember to link it in here, and I make a variety of different flavors, and the kids just boil the kettle, pour it in, and they have instant oatmeal. Now, obviously, because it's hot, it's not as appealing. They will still eat it, but I have tried overnight oats and I've tried chia puddings, and neither of them really appeal to my kids. They just haven't, and we also don't have a microwave, so it's not something they can just zap. And again, we're trying to avoid that, hot breakfast thing. So what I thought is I might try doing some blended overnight oats and making them nice and interesting for them to want to eat. So first, I am going to turn the oven on, but only for about 15 minutes. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to roast up a whole lot of nuts, and I'm going to make like a faux Biscoff, a nice spiced nut butter type thing that's similar to a Biscoff, to use to flavour the instant oats, because the kids love Biscoff, but I don't really want that quantity of sugar in a breakfast if I can avoid it. So what we're going to do first is that. So I've got a baking tray. Now, I did think I had more almonds, another packet, but I don't appear to. So this is the quantity of almonds we're going with, which is probably maybe a cup worth. And then I've got plenty of raw natural cashews. So this is a half cup. So if we go 1.5, we go half, sorry, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and then we go 3-ish. Then we've got 4 cups of nuts all up, which should be a good amount to do, because you don't want to do too few at a time when you're turning them into a nut butter, because it works heaps better when you've got a decent amount. So we're going to stick with that. About 4 cups of nuts. I'm going to stick these in the oven at about 180. I'll turn them a couple of times over that 15 minutes, and we just want them all to have nice colour. Cashews, when they're natural raw, they have not much flavour at all. They're pretty much nothing, which is why we use these for raw cheesecakes or sometimes cheese sauces and stuff. Once they're roasted, they have quite a significantly changed flavour, a buttery flavour. It's just really nice. So they make a much nicer nut butter roasted, in my opinion. So we're going to stick these in the oven as the first step. Another thing I'm going to do is make a date caramel. So this will be good for giving that sweetness, caramelly flavour, but we've got some fibre and stuff in the dates. I'm going to get around about, say, 400 grams of dates, I suppose, because this date caramel can be used for other things. It can be put in the fridge. So these are just pitted dates. They're fairly inexpensive ones. I'm out of medjool, but for this sort of a purpose, it really doesn't matter. You don't need nice tender dates. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of cups of boiling water on this one. It's going to hydrate the dates. It's going to soften them all up, and then we're just going to drain the water off, and we can whiz these up to caramel. Now, one of the bonuses of that too is that we'll be left with all that water, which is going to be a sweet water. So if we need to thin out any of the oats or anything, we'll have that date water to do it as well. And date water, the caramelness of the date's going to go with whatever flavours I choose. Alright, so we've got boiling water, and all I'm going to do is put, say, 2 cups. Let's see how much it covers them. Just 2 cups of water. Yeah, that should be fine. I'll show you, but they're all covered in water, so that should work well to do that. And they only need to sit there for like 20 minutes in this heat. They're already pretty soft because it's been so hot. So we're going to put that aside as well. Now, the next thing we could do is mix up the spice mix for the Biscoff style spread. So let me grab a bowl. All right, so I've got the basic spices of like a Biscoff spread, right? So we've got some nutmeg with some cinnamon, some ginger and some cloves. And we're going to put some in a jar. So let's look at a tablespoon of cinnamon, and then we'll probably do, say, a teaspoon of ginger, and then maybe half a teaspoon of both nutmeg and clove. Let's give this a shake. And I think that should work. I think other than the sweetness missing in that, which we'll add when we make the nut butter, that's about right. So I might double that while I'm here, just because I've got all these jars freshly filled, because I just had to grind some clove and stuff because I only had whole cloves. So we're doing a tablespoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of ginger, and half each of nutmeg and cloves. And we'll give this a go and see how it works. All right, so my nuts are almost done. I've turned the oven off. They're pretty much done, but I want them to cool slightly before I blend them. So I'm going to do the dates first. So I am going to just scoop them out, leaving the majority of the liquid behind. I'm using an egg flip or a spatula, yes, because I can't find my perforated spoon. But this will do. And I'm going to just add a pinch of salt and a tiny bit of vanilla to these, and that's it. And then we've got this liquid if we need to add a bit more liquid. So we've got all the bits of dates in there, a tiny bit of vanilla and a pinch of salt, and then we're going to blend this. Now of course I don't have a lid here for my Thermomix. Give me a sec. Here we go, and let's just blend it. So we've just given that 20 seconds on speed 5. I'm going to check it, scrape it down, and we will bump the speed up as needed. It's getting there. Just need a spatula. All right, so I'm just going to scrape that down. I think I'm going to add a little bit of liquid because I want this to just be a bit more loose. So this has had a bit of cinnamon on it, which will not affect this. I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons of that soaking liquid in. All right, and that was another 20 seconds on 4 to 5. And we've got this thick sort of a paste. Again, I probably want it a little bit looser, like it's this lovely thick, but I think I want it, though not really, I suppose, because if you think of it like a nut butter, then it's probably pretty perfect. So maybe we'll just leave it at that, and I can always thin it down in small parts if I need. So I'm going to put this in something, because I probably won't use it all. So let me find something to put this in. I have a heap of plastic, like reusable lids for these wide mouth mason jars. So these are one of my favorite things to use for storing stuff in the fridge and stuff like that, because I have a heap of lids that suits them. So let's stick it in here for the moment. And then that way, whatever I don't use can just go in the fridge, because that's nice and easy. So, all right, and it looks like that 400 grams of dates did around about, what, 2/3 of one of these jars. That's probably a good amount. I could probably bump it to 500 grams and it would still just be one of these jars worth, which is like a good number to know, because it's nothing worse than you're trying to put things in jars and it's a little bit more than your standard size storage jar. I hate that. All right, so there we go. Looks pretty good to me. Smells lovely. Smells like date caramel, which is what it is. All right, so that part's done. Now I need to do the nut butter. Now, I don't suppose that having this in here is going to make any difference to the nut butter. If anything, it'll probably make it blend easier. So we might just leave it in, and we might use this one because the nuts are going to be hot too, so it's just going to melt any of that. And I was going to use some soaking water if I needed to, so this is way I don't have to clean it up. So the nuts are done. They are here, so they've got some colour on them, but not too much. And a variety of colour, which is what I like too. I like it when you've got some that are a bit darker than others and things like that. I think it adds to the flavour. So we're going to stick all of these in here. We're aiming for a looser rather than thicker nut butter. So we'll see how we go, but we get them all in here first. Put the lid on and we're going to start blending. Start on 5. So that was about 20 seconds on 5, which is going to have broken them right down. And they should be more of a meal now. Yeah, see, they're sort of like a meal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrape the edges of this down, and then we're going to start bumping it up a little bit to get this to break down into a butter. And then we might add a tiny drizzle of ghee to this if we need to. So that was another 30 seconds at speed 10, and we're nearly there. We may not need any oil because we're doing it nice and hot. So starting to turn into a butter. We might add a little bit of oil actually. All right, so I'm gonna use ghee. The only problem with ghee is that it goes hard in the fridge, but it'll be a nice flavour to it, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to turn it up, and I'm just going to drizzle in probably 2 tablespoons of ghee over the time that it takes. We've done another 30 seconds at 10. I think it's going to need another one. It do normally take quite a few minutes to get to butter. So you just keep on making sure that it's good. Now, if I can't find my Thermomix spatula, but the Thermomix spatula has a collar on it, so you can use it in there while it's running. All right, so it's still not quite there. And I definitely want it looser than this. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start adding the flavors and stuff that I'm going to use to make it what it is, so that we can then add some more bulk to it to make it easier to blend. So I've got the spice blend here, and I'm probably just going to use 2 teaspoons of this. 1, 2. And then I'm going to grab I made some keto maple syrup, and I think I'm going to use that here, so that even though it's not exceptionally low carb, it's still lowish. So if I use the keto maple syrup, it keeps it that way. Now, the keto maple syrup I made the other day, and I did record it. I'll share it when I make the granola, because the point of this was for the granola. But we're going to use it in this as well. So I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons of this as well, and then we'll keep blending and we'll see how we go. Now that was another 30 seconds just on speed 5 with those added liquids and stuff in there. And I think we're pretty close to being done. It's still very thick, so I think I'm going to add some more liquid because I want it looser. But let me take a little taste of it. Definitely Biscoffy, but definitely needs to be loosened up a bit more. Now, I could use a little bit of olive oil instead of more ghee, but I'd prefer the ghee. So I think I'm just going to add a couple more tablespoons of ghee for the moment. We will then give it a go, and I've kept all these measurements. So once I hit what I like, then I can share what I did. So let's give this another bit of a spin. Okay, so I've gone for another minute. I added a tiny bit of vanilla and a couple of pinches of salt as well, just because I hadn't put them in yet. And we're still very, very dense. I don't know, I kind of wanted a little bit more spreadable. I reckon I could bump the spices too. So all this trial and error, we're going to add another teaspoon of the spice mix. I'm going to add a bit more ghee. Now I've added 5 tablespoons all up so far, which is just over 1/4 cup. I'm going to add another 1/4 cup. And we definitely hit a lot looser. It's still not quite, it could go a little bit looser, but I'm happy with that. It's very very spreadable, so we're going to stick with that. And that extra teaspoon, that's pretty perfect. I'm happy with that one. So I've got notes. I will share the ratios that I did. So we've got that. All right, so now we've got our start of our setup. We've got our date caramel, we've got the date water, we've got the Biscoff nut butter, and now it's a matter of mixing up the actual blended oats. So I'm going to grab a clean Thermomix bowl. All right, I changed my mind. In that instead of washing the bowl, I put the nut butter into a Pyrex dish, because why wash another one of these? So now it's going to be a matter of figuring out my ratios. So I'm going to start out with, say, 2 cups of oats. All right, so we've got 2 cups of oats. Then I've got yogurt. So this is my yogurt that I've made up. Now I'm going to make more yogurt, so I don't want to contaminate this thing. So I've got a nice clean cup here, and we're going to go with, say, 1 cup of yogurt for that. So I'm just going to put that aside so that it stays clean. So we've got 2 cups of oats, 1 cup of yogurt. Then we're going to go in with some of these things. So we've got the date caramel, which will sweeten it. So let's start out with 2 big tablespoons of that. All right. And then we're going to put in some of this nut butter. So again, let's stick with 2 big. Yes, I'm cross-contaminating, but it's not going to affect either of these things. So 2 heaped tablespoons of each of those. And then we might look at doing a little bit of the date water as well, because we want to thin this out enough that it's going to be a blended dessert-ish type looking thing. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of vanilla as well, though we've got vanilla in those other 2 flavors, so it might not really need it, but vanilla's good. Though I could use the vanilla monk fruit, mind you, too, if I need to add a little bit more sweetness. So we got that. I've also got the keto, not that this is for me, so could always just use normal maple syrup or honey or anything. But I think I want to use some of this date water, but I need a clean tool to get some out. another set of measuring spoons here. So let's see, how much do I want to use becomes a thing. Let's start with 4 tablespoons, which would be around about 1/4 cup, if I could find 1/4 cup. And then what we're going to do is we're going to blend it all up and see what the consistency looks like. So that was 20 seconds on 7. And what have we got? We've got a smooth-ish texture, but not really what I'd call super smooth. So I want to try and take that further. Like it looks like instant oatmeal. I'd like to take it so it's really smooth. I think it's going to need more liquid for that to be feasible. So what I might do is add another 1/4 cup of the date water. So that would be a 1/2 cup in total. And then we will assess. So another 4 of these, which is around about 1/4 cup. So I did another 30 seconds and I took it slowly up to speed 10. And I think I'm much happier with that. There is still some texture to it, but I don't think that can be avoided. But it's really creamy. That is super tasty. You've got the tang of the yogurt, the sweetness of the caramel, the spiciness of the cinnamon and stuff like that. I think it's sweet enough for them as is, but I might just add a couple of drops of the monk fruit and mix that through, just to bump it that little bit, and without adding too much to it. And most of these have like a chocolate shell topping. It's part of the, like, you know, it's a novelty of this sort of thing as well. All right, so I'm happy with that. So now I need to find something that I'm going to set it in the fridge in. All right, now these jam jars are probably my best options because there's no shoulder on them for them to get food stuck in them, but I probably don't want this amount in each one. Like, I don't want to fill them, but I'm not entirely sure how much I want to put in either. So this is a 1/2 cup measure. 1/2 cup is probably a good quantity, but I feel like that's not going to be very much in these jars. Let's see what a 1/2 cup equates to in one of these jars. Messy way to do it, but we're just judging quantities. So it's probably not too bad. It's a little over half. So that's probably feasible, especially if we're going to put a little bit of a topper on it. So let's see how far this goes too, like whether we get 6 jars for the 6 kids out of one batch that I did, so that they can all taste each flavour and decide whether they like it or not, because there's plenty of other options for flavours. Okay, so it mostly filled 1/2 cups for each one, not quite. So I'm going to bump the ratios up a little bit in this one. So I'm going to make a topping for them because we're making these sort of as like a brand new treat to try. So I'm going to put these aside for a minute, out of the way, and we're going to blend up another batch. I'm going to use the same bowl because we're going to use similar flavours anyway. We had 2 cups of oats. I'm going to go with 3 because that makes more sense at getting 1/2 cup in each, to be honest, because that's 6 1/2 cups. Oops, 6 of my measurements are a little bit lacking there, but there we go. So we've got 3 cups of oats, which I'm still going to stick to that half that amount in yogurt because there was a lot of tartness that came through in the yogurt, so I don't want to overdo that, and my yogurt's pretty tart. Now this yogurt is a little bit loose too because it got forgotten about and left in the thermos a bit longer than it needed to be. So I thought this was a good way to use some of it up too. So we've got 1.5 cups of yogurt in there. I'm going to I'm still going to use some date water because the date caramel is a good way to, but I'm not going to use the nut butter. I'm going to use 1 cup of this date water, partly because I want to use it and partly because I'm going to test out. So these ones are quite thick and I'm concerned that once it's refrigerated it might be a bit too much, so we're going to test that out by changing it up a little bit. So this one I'm still going to use the 2 heaping spoonfuls of the caramel, and then I'm going to grab a couple of frozen bananas, and instead of the nut butter, the Biscoff butter, I'm going to use some peanut butter protein, and we're going to have like a peanut butter banana one. So this is the Macro Mike's cookie dough protein, so I'm going to put a scoop of that in here as like an alternative to a nut butter, and then I'm going to grab some bananas. Now I grabbed out of the freezer what equates to about 3 bananas because I've only got frozen bananas, but that should be fine. So let's get this on and blending, and then I need to go and check on the chocolate that's in the double boiler. Alright, so we've done about a minute and we've gone from low speed to high. And this one looks like it's much thinner, which I think, and smoother, which I think is that extra liquid. So I think that, I really do think that these are going to be too thick. Looking at them now, and then once they're refrigerated, they'll be even thicker. They might be a little too much. Whereas this looks like a good consistency. I did notice that some of that protein powder had hit the lid though too, so just gonna mix that through. I think they'll really like that one too. So that's probably all I'll do today is those 2 flavors, and then once they like these ones, then I'll start brainstorming. I've got frozen peaches, I've got frozen strawberries, so we've got the 2 different textures to check out. I'm doing the chocolate topping, so I'll find some jars and I'll come back. Managed to find another 6 of the same jars, which is a bit of a fluke because these are the jars that I buy the jam from Aldi in, and we use these for drinking glasses a lot of the time. So they are normally scattered everywhere or broken, but they take an 82ml lid, which is really convenient because I have a lot of jars that take 82ml lids that I can in. So I have plenty of lids for this size jar. Now, I sized up the quantity of oats and stuff in this one, but I also added the bulk of the banana and that. So this has ended up a lot more than the 6 half cups, of course, which I should have known. Probably not enough for 12, mind you, and it would mean finding more jars. So I'm just going to top these all up a little bit, and I might just put the little bit extra in a bowl, and I might indulge in a taste tomorrow. So I think I'm just going to top these up to like the top of where the label sits on the jars. Just like that. All right, and then I'm going to put the rest in a bowl for myself to try tomorrow. Now the chocolate has been in the double boiler and it is dissolved. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of yogurt to it, which may make it seize, mind you. But I'm going to add a scant half cup of yogurt to it, thin it out like that. I might put it back over the heat for a little bit because I'm also going to add some of the date caramel. So I'm going to stick 1, 2 scoops of this because this was dark dairy-free chocolate, so it's not overly sweet. Now I'm just going to stick this back on the double boiler just to get this all blended. Alrighty, and now all I'm going to do, now realistically these should go in the fridge for a little bit, so they set up a little bit before I try putting the chocolate on there, but I kind of forgot. So these ones should be fine because they're so thick though. So the plan is just to get a scoop of the chocolate and spread it out. My camera's not in a great spot, is it? And spread it out on the top. This is a bit thick. I sort of want it pouring consistency, don't I? So the problem is that the chocolate's setting up. even though I reheated it. But what I might do is add some more yogurt and heat it back up. Again, I'm taking note of all the things I'm doing so that I can give you proper measurements. So let's add, we want to thin this out so that it's almost pourable. So that we don't have to mess with the pots too much. We don't want to have to spread it around too much. We want to be able to sort of just put a spoonful in and let it go. So we've thinned that out. I don't know how much you could see of that because I wasn't looking where the camera is because I'm, you know, figuring it out. Let's go down a bit. All right, and we're just going to grab, that's better, a spoonful and just spread it out. Now that little cup there is quite empty actually. I probably could have put a little bit of the other one on top. Oh well, we live and learn. So all I'm doing is just putting a spoonful of this on top of each one in my very messy slapdash way. And you all wondered why I didn't do instructional videos, and now that I'm doing them, can you see why? Alright, so we've got a spoonful of chocolate on the top of each of these, and I think that that's going to work beautifully because that's going to settle out, and then it's going to be a little bit like chocolate, like the chocolate crackle topping, because it's going to set up in the fridge. This is the one that I did initially with before I added the more yogurt. So it's going to set up kind of firm in the fridge and then have like a crackle topping on the top. That's the hope anyway. So these ones are a bit thinner, and putting this on top, it may just sink into the yogurt, so I'm not going to screw with it too much. I'm just going to plop it on top, and what will be will be, because as I said, I should have chilled these first before putting a topping on them. I'm going to go grab something to put this extra in, and with this bit of chocolate. Now, this is not low carb in the slightest because it's got banana in it and everything, but I'm going to try it tomorrow because I'm not going strict low carb. At the moment, I'm doing lower carb, but I'm not strict keto or anything. So I won't eat the whole lot, which is why I'm doing it in this sort of a flat container, because I can then in the morning, what I'll do once it's all set up is I will share. Now what I'm going to do with this, because it's flat and this chocolate's starting to set up and stuff, and we're testing out the theories, because in the individual jars for the kids is all good and well, but it's a lot of extra work, isn't it? So let's have a look at how this sets up if I just swirl this chocolate topping through it like that. And I'm just going to put that in the fridge like that. And this is the one that I'll pull out tomorrow, and we'll see how it sets up and how it tastes. So I will get one of the kids to try one of these ones too, which were the thicker ones, and we'll see how that goes. And then if they like these, yeah, I'm not sure. If I did it in slabs like this, it would make my life a whole lot easier. Individual jars is kind of neat too though, but maybe I need to use a funnel so that it's a bit neater and get some specific jars for overnight oats so that when I go to look for jars, I know where they are. So now I'm going to clean up this mess. I'm sweating madly because it's horrible, but I've got this done. That's 2 mornings worth of breakfast, all that effort for 2 mornings. But now we've got the process down pat. That's the whole point. We've got extra caramel, we've got extra nut butter and all those sorts of things. So, and the topping isn't a necessity. It's just a fun thing to do. I could definitely just do a bit of cocoa and sweetener mixed with some coconut oil, would do the same thing with a whole lot less effort, and cheaper. I used real chocolate, which isn't something I would normally do for a breakfast, but we're testing this out. So yeah, that's my messy share for today. I'm going to edit this tonight to share tomorrow morning, but I will try them out tomorrow morning and put that on the end of the video before I post it up. So wish me luck. Alrighty, next morning. So this is the one that ended up only a small amount in there and was the thicker version. The amount of yogurt that I put in the chocolate, it hasn't gone firm, but it is more firm than the porridge. But the porridge is still edible at that slightly thicker texture. It's definitely still passable. So then we have the one that I did that has the slightly wetter texture, and it's got and it's probably set up at much the same texture in the end by the looks of it. So the small boys have already had some and they really liked it, so that's a good start. And this is the one that I set in a slab. So it just scoops out nicely like that. So this is definitely feasible to set it in a nice slab like this, and the kids can just spoon what they want out. Taste wise, it's pretty good. It's nice and sweet. It's got that chocolate hint to it. This one's the one with the banana in it. I'm not a huge fan of banana based porridge personally, but most of the kids really like it. So with the chocolate, it just reminds me sort of banana bread. So hopefully everyone likes them, and we'll keep on fiddling with different flavor profiles.